Bree here, and I mentioned a while back that I wanted to do just more of these kind of casual talking update vlogs, and I've had a few things going on in my life recently, so I thought it was a good time to do one. And I also asked you if you had any questions that you wanted me to answer, and I will get to those at the end. So yeah, my life. I've kind of mentioned this, I think, in some videos where I've really been trying to learn more about myself. It's just something that I've always struggled with, like, feeling disconnected from myself. I was always, like, obsessed with personality tests. I mean, I did a video a while back doing the Enneagram and Myers-Briggs, because I love those kinds of personality tests. But when I was younger, I would do them because I felt like I did not know who I was, and I was looking for those to tell me. And that's not really what those are used for. They're used for understanding yourself more, understanding what makes you tick, and, like, being able to adjust accordingly in life. But when I was younger, I looked to them for answers because I just had no connection with myself, I felt like. So I've mentioned before, I've struggled a lot with depression and anxiety, and that's definitely one of the main reasons why, because when you feel like you don't know yourself, it's really hard not to be depressed. So yeah, I've just been really trying to listen to myself more. It's something that I've, been working on in therapy, just kind of learning to love and care for myself. And that involves listening to my body, and that was different for me. Just you have to listen to yourself and your feelings. I'm like, how do I do that? So that has been an adjustment. So yeah, I've just been making an effort to be way more in tune with myself, and it's going pretty well. I'm learning a lot about myself. And TikTok is actually helping with that too, because, you know, I swear the TikTok algorithm knows us better than we know ourselves, and it just starts showing videos like, oh hey, I know these are things you're going to relate to, even though you don't know that you're going to relate to them until you start watching them. And to explain more what I'm talking about, I started getting a bunch of ADHD TikToks, which I'm like, why do I relate to these so much? I'm like, am I imagining things? Why do I relate to these so much? I was talking to Steven, and he'd seen, I think I was sitting next to him when one of the ADHD TikToks came up, and he looked at me, he's like, yeah, that sounds like you. Have you ever thought that you might have ADHD? I'm like, I've wondered recently, but I don't know. Like, I felt weird bringing it up because since I've been so out of sync with myself, I don't trust myself when I start realizing these things about me. So a couple therapy sessions later, I'm talking to my therapist, and I start going on about some issue that I'm having, and she's like, I want to ask you some questions. I was like, okay. So she goes down this list of questions, and I've been looking into ADHD, so I recognize that all of these questions are pointing to ADHD. And she reaches the bottom of the list. She's like, so those were all ADHD questions. So I'm like, yep. She's like, I'm not able to diagnose you, and you do have trauma in your past, so that could also account for it. But it's something you might want to look into with a psychologist. I'm like, yeah, I think I will. So I make an appointment at this local place. It's where I've gotten some of my antidepressants prescribed before. Like, never had a good experience there, but it's like the main place in the area. Bixby, no. I'm talking to my husband about possibly having ADHD, and he's like, yeah, and actually I've been wondering, did you ever think you might be autistic? And I'm like, no. No way. Why would you think that? He's like, well, I know you struggle with eye contact a lot. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm very deliberate about eye contact. Like, I will freaking count the seconds in a conversation to make sure I'm making the right amount of eye contact. I need to know, like, exactly how much eye contact I should make. Okay, it's reaching, like, 30 seconds. I should probably glance away for a little bit, then look back. And, apparently that's not normal. But I dismissed it. I'm like, no. It's just ADHD. That will account for everything. That will solve, like, well, not everything, because some of this doesn't add up, but it'll solve a good part, right? And so then I'm starting to get some autism TikToks as I'm scrolling through, and I'm like, I remember there was one put a finger down challenge. It was put a finger down challenge, really specific ADHD edition. And so I put, like, all my fingers down, and then it's like, so these are actually autism. I'm like, but there's such a stigma with autism where the way it's normally portrayed in media is just one part of the spectrum. And so I'm like, but I'm not like that. So I'm like, I can't be autistic, right? And I didn't understand it enough. And so I was like, surely not. And then I'm talking to a friend of mine who is autistic. And I was like, yeah, I got an appointment to get tested for ADHD. She's like, oh. I was like, what? She's like, no, don't get me wrong. I see it. I just expected you to say autism. And I'm like, well, you're the second person to say that to me. Okay, maybe I'll bring that up at my appointments. The appointment was an ordeal. So, the appointment in and of itself is a story. This is just me ranting about everything going on in my life right now. So, Eustasis is the name of the place that I went to. I do not mind calling them out on this. So, like I said, I've had bad experiences there in the past. The nurses there are really awesome. Everyone else kind of sucks. But I go in for my appointments. You know, I get checked in with the nurse and all that. And for one, it's always such a long wait because they let walk-ins in. And I swear the walk-ins get priority over the scheduled appointments. Like, I've been sitting there for an hour and still haven't been called back for my appointments. And I showed up early. And, I mean, not that early. Like, 5 minutes early. And I'm like, what? And I had a thing to go to after it on the other side of town. So my anxiety is already, like, through the roof. I get called back and sit down with the psychiatrist. No, I said psychiatrist and not psychologist. This is important. And she goes, so how are your meds working for you? How's this? You blah, 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 talking about my meds. I'm like, well, I do have some issues with that, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I was here to talk about ADHD. Oh, you are? Well, they should have had you take a test when you came in. Well, they didn't. When I called for the appointment, I specifically said, I want an appointment to be evaluated for ADHD. This is specifically what I said. This was the sole purpose of making this appointment. At this point, there is no longer time for me. I mean, I'm already going to be late if I leave right this second. And I also, these appointments are expensive. My insurance doesn't cover them. And I'm like, I can't pay for 2 separate appointments. I can't do this. So they're like, okay, we won't charge you for this appointment. We'll set you up for the next appointment. Wait another, 3 weeks, and then come back to get tested. I'm like, okay. I'm, leaving in full-blown tears, anxiety attack, breakdown. I was a mess. As I go drive across town for my church event that I had that night. But I go to my next appointments. And they have me take the test. You know, I get checked in. They send me to take the test, which was like they had this sensor on my head, and I had a buzzer in my hand, and I had to like click every time, like shapes would flash up on the screen, and I had to click every time they changed. And at first it was fine. I'm like, okay, this isn't so bad. That test, it was like an hour-long test? I don't know. It felt like 2 hours. It was like halfway through, I'm like, I cannot keep staring at this freaking screen. And then I go back to the secondary waiting room. Wait, because that's all you do with this place. And then I get called back to see the psychiatrist. Again, psychiatrist. If you don't know, psychiatrists don't diagnose you with anything. Psychiatrists prescribe medication. Psychologists are who diagnose you with things. But I take in the test. I go back there. I'm sitting and talking with her. And this is a different person from last time, because every time I go in there, I've seen someone different. And she's like, so how your meds treating you, blah, 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 the same stuff. And I'm like, I'm here about ADHD. Oh, yeah, I do see a little note here that you took the test. Let me just pull that right up. And she pulls it up, and she's like, well, you're kind of right on the edge where it does look like you were uncomfortable, but that could have just been the fact that you have anxiety. But you did well scoring-wise, so, you know, do your parents have it? No. Did you do well in school? Yes. Okay, well, you probably don't, then. Those were the 2 questions that she asked. You can have ADHD and do well in school. Especially when you're a perfectionist like I am. And also, you could tell she did not know what she was talking about as she's talking. Like, this is not her realm of expertise, which makes sense because she's a psychiatrist, not a psychologist. So she, like, keeps trying to move on with the appointment, and she can tell I am salty. I am not having it. And she's like, what? I'm like, well, the thing is, I came in here trying to get answers because my brain doesn't work right. At this point, I'm not even bringing up autism because it's already just spiraling downhill. I'm like, my brain doesn't work right. I know it doesn't. I don't know what it is, but I know it doesn't work right, and you're not helping me. And she's like, okay, well, we can set you up an appointment with the psychologist. She's booked like 4 months out. Why? Why was this not the case to begin with? Why? I'm just like, okay, fine, whatever. And she did, like, put me on some different medication that, it was something that worked well with my antidepressant, but was also shown to help with ADHD. And so I'm like, well, at least I got something. Hey, that's actually helped me a lot. Yeah, I make the appointment for a few months out. And I start doing research on my own. For, like, months, I'm doing so much research. I have a spreadsheet of, like, all the symptoms of autism I experience, all the symptoms of ADHD I experience, and even the ones I don't. Like, I basically just went through all the online tests, all the articles I could find, and wrote down everything that they said, and then said, do I experience this now? Did I experience this as a child? Because that's very important. Both. Or is it somewhere in between? Like, I experience it to a degree, but not the way that I think it's saying, you know. Or do I not experience it at all? And then I had a note where I would elaborate on how I experience it or how I don't experience it. And, going through this list, I became more and more convinced that I am autistic because the majority variety of things, added up. And it answered, like, I broke down crying so many times throughout this process. Because I, like, would read something, I'm like, wait, that's not just something that's wrong with me? That's not, like, there are so many things that I just thought was wrong with me, and I'm reading this, and I'm like, oh, this is just autism? Oh, yeah, that appointment with the psychologist, they don't send appointment reminders, and I had it on my calendar. But given that I'm pretty sure I have ADHD, that didn't necessarily mean anything, because even though I looked at my calendar that day, my eyes for some reason just skipped right over it because it said, I saw, okay, here's my normal Monday, here's what it's supposed to look like, okay, let me get to it. Checking through my normal to-do list that I do every Monday. And I completely did not realize that I had this appointment. And then they called me afterwards to reschedule. I'm like, no. I'm done with you. I'm not dealing with this. I don't even care at this point. I've done a lot of research. I feel pretty confident in saying that I'm autistic and have ADHD. I still would like a professional diagnosis, but I've spent a long time. I've spent probably a year on it at this point. The things I'm learning for, like, living with this and coping with it is helping me so much. My mental health has improved so much. I don't have nearly as many breakdowns anymore because I've realized most of them were from being overstimulated. I'm like, what is causing these anxiety attacks? It's because I'm overstimulated. And now that I know how to work within it. It's just so many pieces are clicking into place. Like, I do not know how to describe how amazing this has been and just how much it makes my brain make sense to me. And I need to know how things work. And now I know how my brain works, I feel like. And it is amazing. It has been so great. And I've started listening to, like, some podcasts, watching some YouTubers, some of the ones I really like, just if anyone else is going through something like this. Mom on the Spectrum is one of my favorite YouTubers that I watch. She is awesome. She's someone else who realized later in life that she's autistic. Now she's figured it out and is learning how to live with it and adjust to it, and I love it. And this podcast that I am obsessed with right now is Oh, That's Just My Autism. It's this girl, she found out she was autistic in her 40s, and now this is basically just her verbal journal of all these things. She's like, yeah, so I was dealing with this, and I've had these problems throughout my life, and I never knew what it was, but oh, it's just my autism. And just talking about that, and as someone who's just now realizing, oh, it's just my autism, it's just so relatable, and I love it. And I recently listened to her talking about her diagnosis process, which I'm like, I really want to get diagnosed. I just want that validation. Even though I'm 99% sure about this, I want that validation. But the thing is, it's hard to find someone around here, and I'm not going back to Eustasis. And it's so expensive. And so she's talking, and she's like, yeah, we did it virtually. I'm like, ooh, so this is a place that is virtual, so I could do it, right? And she's like, and it's a non-profit. They try to keep costs as low as possible. Everything's a donation. And I'm like, tell me more. And she's like, the person that I worked with that diagnosed me, I'm pretty sure she's autistic too. And it's a woman, which is really good for me because I don't like meeting with men in those kinds of settings just because I'm not as comfortable sharing with them. And come to find out that this place actually has a all-female staff. And also, autism and ADHD present differently in females than males, so I need people who are very knowledgeable about that, and these people obviously are. And she was just telling what a great experience she had. It was 3 appointments, it was very in-depth, And they made sure she was comfortable throughout the whole thing, because being autistic, she was really nervous going in, not knowing what the process would look like. Very first thing, she was like, here's exactly what the process is gonna look like, step by step, let me break it down for you. She's like, great. So, like, they know, they understand. And I was like, I feel like I need to look into this. And it's grasp.com, grasp.com, if this is something you're dealing with and you want to look into it. They're booking like 6 months out. I know, because I just set up my appointments. It is the day after my birthday, so happy birthday to me. I am really excited. Like, I'm nervous, I'm scared, but I am so excited to finally have the ball rolling on this. And the thing is, they specialize in adults that went through their life without realizing it. Because everywhere else I was looking is like, we diagnose children. I'm like, great, but I'm not a child. And this place, like, specializes in people who masked through their childhood and are just now realizing this. And I'm like, they specialize in what's going on with me, you know? And I'm like, that's too perfect. Another reason why I think that it wasn't noticed in me that I'm autistic is because autism and ADHD are kind of opposites in some ways. So I think the two, like, balance each other out and compensates for each other. So, like, yes, because ADHD is like all chaos and autism is all order, and I'm right here in the middle, like, I need spontaneity in my life, but I need structure and routine and order, and I need to know exactly what that spontaneity is gonna look like. Been such a struggle for me throughout my life. Like, I've always said, I feel like my brain is one giant contradiction. And now I feel like I know why. I'm like, I'm extroverted, but I'm also very shy, and I get overwhelmed in crowds. And small group settings are hard for me because I don't know when it's my turn to talk in the conversation. Now I feel like I have my answer, and I'm really excited to actually get this appointment. If anyone else is going through or has gone through something similar, please let me know in the comments, because this is the big thing in my life right now. I'm talking about it nonstop any chance I get, because it's my special interest right now. Other stuff going on in my life, because there are some other things. My father-in-law is going for a bone marrow transplant, next week by the time this video goes out, I think. Yeah, by the time this video comes out, it'll be next week. So if you could keep him and our family in your prayers, I'd really appreciate that. I don't want to go into too much detail on it all, just, yeah, it's happening. It's stressful, but, yeah, if you could just keep us in your prayers, I would very much appreciate that. Let's see, Halloween was a lot of fun. But I hardcore crashed afterwards, because that happens to me a lot whenever I do something really fun and exciting that I've been looking forward to. The next day I'm just, I'm dead. I'm done for. And it hit me really hard this year. I think that might be because the surgery is also coming up, and Halloween was in between that, so I was able to focus on that. I don't know. But yeah, it hit me really hard. So this week has been tough for me. That's why this video is going out on Saturday instead of Friday, because I'm actually filming this on Friday when I originally scheduled for this to go out. But between that and one of the horror movies I watched this year got to me psychologically, so I'm dealing with that. I have to be careful about horror movies. Like, I love the horror genre, but certain things get to me. And normally I'm okay if it's like an average serial killer, but, if it gets too psychological, you don't like it. it messes with my head and gets me super paranoid about the world. The movie was Halloween Ends, if you're curious. Loved Halloween Kills. They were great. Halloween Ends. A, I just didn't like it in general. B, the psychological stuff was... I don't like it. I don't like that. Let's see, what else? I've kind of restructured my morning and night routines because I'm trying to be better about that, and I need a really set routine in order to be able to stick to it. Otherwise, I just snooze for an eternity and stay up till like 1 a.m. And it's just not good for me if I don't have a lot of structure. So I've reworked my morning and night routines, and it's been doing me a lot of good, I feel like. I'm really enjoying it, so I might do another video on that if you're interested. Let's get into your questions. Robbie asked, how's it going? And talk about me and myself. I've done that a lot. That's everything that's going on in my head recently. And how's it going? Depends on the day, depends on the week. This week, like I said, it's kind of been a tough week. Just with the post-Halloween crash, surgery coming up, and movie messing with my head. I spent like all day yesterday curled up on the couch because I'm struggling. But, aside from that, honestly, aside from those things, life has been better recently. Like I said, learning this stuff about me, my mental health is so much better than it has been in the past. I feel so much better. I have so much more motivation. I'm able to live my life in a way that works for me, I feel like. The morning and night routine have really helped me just to have more energy throughout the day. I've been feeling good aside from that. Oh, also, doing trauma processing and therapy, which is not fun. So, like, every week after therapy, I come home and I'm like, I'm mentally drained. I don't want to relive this trauma. But, the only way out is through. So, I'm gonna keep doing it since it's great. Therapy's only every other week, so it was this week. It was the day after Halloween, so on top of the post-Halloween crash, I had therapy. Yeah, so overall, mostly going good. Right now, could be better. Hunter asked if I've watched Dead End Paranormal Park on Netflix. No, I have not even heard of that. I'll go ahead and tell you what I have been watching recently. For one, it's been October, so I've been watching horror movies, watched the Halloween movies, as I mentioned. Otherwise, I've been watching a lot of YouTube. That's the main thing I watch. Markiplier, Lauren Seaside, everything Matt Pat does, Sniper Wolf, watch them all the time. Oh, and Good Mythical Morning as well. I recently watched through all of Pretty Little Liars for the first time. I love those kind of mystery drama shows. I really, really enjoyed it. Got really invested in it. And as soon as I finished it, I'm like, okay, now I need to rewatch it knowing who A is. Like, seeing the setup done that I wouldn't have noticed anyway. Like, yeah. So I have started rewatching it. I'm not going as quickly now because I'm not as, like, super invested and hooked. But I am still enjoying it. I watched the new Pretty Little Liars, Original Sin, which was good. I think I would have enjoyed it more if it'd been its own thing and not Pretty Little Liars. Like, it's cool because it's set in the same world, but I just did not... It was not what I expected. It was way more of a Scream-esque show than a Pretty Little Liars show. And if I'd gone to it with that expectation, I think I would have loved it. But as it was, I was really thrown off. Been watching Clone Wars. watched She-Hulk and Rings of Power with my husband. We really enjoyed those. I was not expecting to like She-Hulk as much as I did because I'm just not much into Hulks in general. It's just not my favorite Marvel storyline, but I loved it so much. It's up there on my favorite Marvel shows for sure, but they've all been so good, so it's hard to say it's up there with my favorites when they're all great. And yeah, Rings of Power, I really loved. That's an era of Middle Earth that has always fascinated me. So, as soon as they announced that they were doing a Lord of the Rings show, I was like, I want it to be set during the Forging of the Rings. Like, I want to see that. Oh, another show that I've watched this is not my type of show at all, but I watch Heartbreak High on Netflix. The whole reason I watched it is because Mom on the Spectrum, one of the autistic YouTube channels I watch, said that it had really great autistic representation. And so I was curious, because I've only seen autism portrayed in media, like, one way. And while it's great to see that portrayal, it's not something that I'll relate to parts of it. Like in the new Ghostbusters. Ooh, that's another movie I watched recently. In the new Ghostbusters, one of the main characters was autistic. And, I'm like, yes, I do relate to some of the things that she's saying and some of the things she's going through, but we're in different places of the spectrum. And that's great that she's there. Like, I'm not saying I don't want to see that kind of representation, because I do. But I also would really like to see more representation that looks like me. And that is what I got through Quinny in Heartbreak High. And I would not have kept watching the show because it's so not my kind of show. But Quinny was amazing. And again, I would just break down crying in certain scenes because I'm like, I relate to this so much. I feel this so much. There's an episode where she really broke down. Like, I've gone through this exact same thing. And it just hit me so much, and also really made me wish that I'd realized this about myself in high school. I got a lot of, like, jealousy watching it, because I'm like, I was not this in tune with myself in high school. I did not know who I was in high school, and I wish I'd had that confidence and that self-awareness to be true to myself in high school, like it's showing her being. And that hit me a lot. But mostly it's just watching her and just loving her and relating to her a lot. And I've also started following the actress who plays her, Chloe Hayden. I follow her on YouTube and TikTok, and she is awesome. I was, like, binging a whole bunch of her YouTube videos the other day. So yeah, that's what I've been watching. Well, I've gone on rambling for probably longer than I meant to. This was supposed to be a super easy video to edit to get out tomorrow, but we will see how easy it is, because I have a problem with not shutting up. What's been going on in your life? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a like, and if you want to keep watching, there should be another video popping up right here. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe to become a part of the Ineffable community, because you are ineffable.